Hello pinball fans. So here is the throne room installation. Let me give you an idea of what comes in the package when you get the throne room mod, so you have an idea of what you're looking at here. Here is a screw for the mounting of this switch bracket, which goes into the VUK for the throne room. So that just goes into the single back hole of this black bracket. You're going to get a controller box. That's for the lighting on the back of the throne room, which this plug will plug into. There's the arrow that I'm going to reference later. That's where the black wire goes from this plug here. And there's a 3-pin plug that goes into the 3-pin plug on the controller box, which you'll also get. Get a couple pieces of Velcro, one of those to go on this box. It can go on the side or the back, doesn't matter, just depends on how you're going to mount that in the game. Same with this box. I recommend putting it on the top. This bottom is just a snap-in-place piece, so ideally you wouldn't want to put it on the bottom. I would put it on this side to hold it into the game. But you can use the Velcro or not, it's up to you. That's why we keep it separate. You'll get a couple zip ties, of course the throne room mod itself, which is all set to go in. This is the mounting point of the throne room, which is one of the original threaded rods that is in the game that holds the original throne room pieces in. So you'll just reuse the same nut that goes there. And then one thing to pay attention to, which are labeled very clearly on this box, but you'll want to pay attention when you plug yours in. This 3-pin connector right here is for future use for the topper, for integration with the interactive topper that we'll be releasing. This plug right here, which has a big black dot on it, is going to connect to the blue-black wire set of wires that is in the game, and again you'll see that later in the video. And then there's another one with an orange dot on it, which will connect to the blue-orange wire. So you just want to make sure you get those wires in the correct spots. I don't think anything bad would happen, but of course the mod will not work without those installed properly. So that's what's going to come in the kit, and here's the rest of the installation. Alright, pinball fans, let's talk about removing the current throne room spotlight and acrylic there. So you're going to need to remove these two nuts here, and we're going to take off this plastic piece here. Just pulls off of these rubber nubs here, which you can sort of twist and pull out. They come out of here and of this plastic, so just hang on to those. You're not going to need them when you install the new throne room, but if you ever take it out, you'll want to put those back in. And then this nut's going to come off right here. And then we have this hex post to deal with. Your original one probably has these wires zip tied to it, so I would cut that zip tie to loosen it up. And then what you could do right off the bat is take this screw off the top here. You're going to probably have to hold this spotlight and maybe the hex post, but you can also possibly just unscrew the hex post with your fingers, maybe just some pliers to get it started, and that will turn the screw at the same time. As long as it's loose, then it should have enough room to come out of there. So then basically you'll have all these things loose here, and the plastic will also be loose. And you can see the wires for those two things go down into the play field through a hole right down there. And so now we're going to remove these two things, and to do that we're going to have to go under the play field and disconnect the connectors for these, or you can cut the wires, but obviously if you can remove the connectors, it will leave a much easier reinstall if you ever put them back. So looking under the play field here, just to give you an idea of where we're looking, zooming in here, these are the two wires that come in from the throne room to under the play field. You have your spotlight wires, which are the blue and black, which connect to the blue and blue-black. I can't get quite the right twist on that, but that's a blue-black and that's a blue. And then you have the LED strip under the head, which is the yellow-black, and that connects to the blue and orange-blue wires. So you're going to want to disconnect both of those. We're going to reuse both of those plugs in the new throne room. And then you can use a pin removal tool. If you buy from us, we have this pin removal tool available. It's just a manual one, it has two sizes. It's 0.096 and something else on the other side. It's a very commonly available tool. I think this is the actual Molex tool, which is much better. It's spring-loaded and will push the pins right out, but obviously not necessary for this specific situation. Of course, you can just clip the wires sort of right here, and then you'll have something to solder back together if you want to do that. And these connectors are widely available, used in many pinball machine connectors. So to use these tools, we're going to take the connectors apart, and I'll give you a little bit of an idea how that works. Alright, so now that the connectors are apart, you'll see inside that connector there are two pins, and at the bottom of those pins is a splayed out, two metal tabs that are splayed out, which hold those pins in the connector. You're going to take the larger side of this tool, and it's going to go in the connector, over the pin, push down far enough that it covers those two tabs, and then you're going to be able to pull the connector out. So the whole pin and wire will pull out the back end. I would suggest making sure that the pins are pushed in as far as they will go this way, so push the wires up into the connector as far as possible before you put the tool onto them, and try to hold them in place. That way the tool fits all the way down over those flared tabs that are holding it in, and then you'll be able to hopefully easily pull those out. If you pull too hard on the wire and the tabs are not compressed, the wire could just pull out of the pin that it's crimped into, so that would be not great. But if that happens, you can recrimp a new pin on there, and you'll be fine to reinsert it if you want to go and reinstall. So let me set this up so I can do that. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the tool, hopefully you can see everything that I'm doing here, and I'm just going to hold that yellow wire in place, put the tool over the pin, slide the tool down all the way, hold it in place. Hopefully you can get a bit of an idea of what I'm doing there, and then sort of wiggle the wire and pull it out. There we go. So you can see that the wire is just crimped on there a little bit, so you want to make sure you're very careful with that. But then you can do the same thing. Slide that over. I'm going to try to push the wire in as much as possible with my right hand. Oops, don't drop the tool. Where did that go? Right here. Take the tool, put it over the pin, sort of push down on it. You can sort of hear a click or make a noise when it gets down in there, and then just pull the pin right out of the connector. So when you do that on both connectors, then you'll be able to pull those wires up through the play field, right through that hole there, and not have to splice them if you want to put them back together. Alright, so now that we have the pins off of the connectors from underneath, you can see this, right? Yeah, you can just pull both wires up and out from the hole there, and then this entire piece can be unthreaded from the plastic, and you're left with just the plastic. The spotlight and the rest of the throne room decoration is not used in this mod, so you can get rid of that. So to install the throne room, you have two connectors that sort of replace the two connectors that you just took out of the throne room. Zoom. Come on, focus. There we go. This one should be no problem. It will fit through the hole in the plastic and the hole in the play field. The other one has to be folded. So it's 5 pins They are connected together, and what you can do is just between any second to third pin, if it's not already done, you can just do it. You can just break it, crack it a little bit. It won't mess anything up. It will go back to being in line like that after you're done with it. But with that little break of those two pins, you can fold it enough to get it through the hole in the plastic. And just like, if it will focus, just like that. So then you can put it through the top of the plastic along with that other 3-pin connector. Slide them all the way through. You might have different colored wires, different kinds of wires, but the idea is the same. And then you have the plastic and throne room combination. Now you have to take these two wires and route them similarly to the original wires, which is behind this rubber, between the side rail and that rubber, and then down through the hole in the play field. So easiest, I think, probably to take this broken connector now and get that pushed through first. Mine was able to just push right through, and then you can fit the other 3-pin connector right next to it. Might be helpful to have a pair of tweezers or some pliers to help push it through. Just make sure that the tabs on either side of it don't get caught on the side of the hole. And might take a little bit of fiddling. Once you get those tabs cleared, it will push right through, and you can push both connectors all the way through. So now we have those connectors through. Just pull them through the bottom side a little bit. Make sure they're not interfering with other wires that are down there. And you can start orienting everything. Now, if you notice, these wires are fairly thick and they don't bend the easiest. So what you're going to need to do is sort of fish them along the back side here behind this post. So best you can do, sort of get them snugged under there. They probably won't fit all the way behind that post, but you know, actually I think it's better to put the 3-wire in first, then the 5-wire. And you'll get an idea once you start putting the plastic in place what kind of length you need from those wires. But you can see that they're going to sort of fold over the back here and get sort of smushed in place by the plastic. The tab on the throne room fits over that screw hole on that side, and then there's also a small hole right here on the bottom of the throne room which fits over that post right there. So once everything's aligned, you'll feel it all fall into place there, and then it's good to go. The nut that you originally took off will go onto this tab back here to hold the throne room in place, and if you get the wires all oriented properly coming out of that hole, then it should all sit pretty flat. You can put these nuts back on here, and that's the top of the playfield installation. If you're having trouble with these wires on the back side, getting them all tucked in there, you can use a heat gun or a blow dryer to heat them up a little bit, and then give them the right sort of bend so they go underneath and fold over easier. But it just takes a little bit of patience there, and you'll get them tucked under. So that's the upper playfield installation, and all we have to do is now connect the controller. I think that's a good angle to see what we're doing here. So the last part is connecting the controller. You're going to have a box that looks similar to this, and I don't have the exact one handy right now, but I have our prototype here, which will be quite the same as what you're going to get. So what you're going to find is that connected to the controller there will be a few pieces. One of them is a connector like this with an orange dot, and another one will be a similar connector with a black dot. Those correspond to the colors of the wires that you're going to connect them to. If you remember, we have two similar plugs here. One is an orange, blue with an orange stripe, one is blue with a black stripe. So those are just going to match up. Blue with an orange stripe goes to the orange dot, and blue with black stripe goes to the black dot. Just do a double check on those and make sure that that's correct. You don't want to mess those up. You're going to have also a 3-pin connector like this, which is going to connect to the 3-pin connector that you push through the playfield. And that is everything. Yeah, so that's what's coming through the playfield that you're going to connect to this. Then you're going to have, let me grab one. You're going to have one of these controller boxes for the lighting strip on the back. This has a 12-volt barrel plug on that end, which will be coming out of the controller box that you get, and we'll just plug in right there. And then the other 5 pins that were coming through the playfield, which you can now reorient and make sure that they're in a fairly straight line there, are going to plug into this 5-pin connector on the controller box. If you look real close, I don't know if you'll be able to see in the video, there's an arrow. Let's see if it will focus. Yeah, you can sort of see it. It's not going to focus that close, but there's an arrow on that connector. That arrow points to one end of this. Sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe it's the black side. If it doesn't work, you just switch it to the other side. But make sure that these pins, again, are lined up straight, and then just watch them as they go into each of those 5 sockets on this connector and put them together. This is the box that's controlled with the remote that you're getting, the larger blue one, and that will adjust the lighting on the back, which is replacing the spotlight. And it sort of shines toward the Munchkin hut, and you can control brightness, turn on and off the white or the RGB independently. I'll go over that remote in just a second. So then you'll have 2 boxes, each with Velcro on them, and you're just going to need to find a place to attach them to the playfield. Obviously within length of those wires. One spot is definitely right here. Another spot could be down further. You can't see it in the video, but just below where my finger's pointing, there's a blank spot, or you could possibly fit them side by side right here. The only consideration that you're going to have is that this little guy with the black on the end is the IR receiver for the remote that is controlling the lighting on the back of the throne room. So you can just leave this piece dangling down under the playfield. You can obviously zip tie it somewhere, and then you can put the remote through the coin door and point it in that direction, and that will help give that IR receiver connection to the remote, and you can make the changes you need. That's probably the easiest way to do it. You can try putting the IR receiver up back through that hole in the playfield so you can reach it with the remote from above the playfield, but probably not necessary since you're not going to be changing it that often. So once you get all those connected, you can Velcro those boxes in place, and when you turn the game on and power eventually is provided to the spotlights, then you'll see the throne room come to action. And then I will cover the remote control for the spotlight replacement lighting and for the throne room itself in the next segment. So one other thing we need to look at as the final part of the installation is this little micro switch here. This switch basically is an additional detection of the ball going into the VUK for the throne room. This is what tells the controller for the throne room if the ball is actually in the hole in the VUK. So right now on the original one there are these opto sensors. This is one, and then there's one on the other side, and those pass a beam through the hole which detects the ball when it's down in that hole there. This switch is just going to need to be placed. I'll give you an approximate idea. Is going to be placed on top here, and is going to sit right about there. So I'll give you a little bit of a view here of this. There you can see it sort of sits in between the two top screws that mount the metal bracket to the play field for the VUK, and there's a better view. And the tip of this black bracket sort of sits right on the metal bracket for the VUK. So the only hole that's accessible, you can see there's two holes there on the black plastic bracket for that switch, is the rear hole, and that's all you're going to need to hold it in, is that rear hole. We're including a metal screw that you just put right in that back hole to hold it up against the play field. Pre-drilling it is probably a good idea, although it's a short screw, and it's probably not an issue if you don't pre-drill it. If you can, go for it. Obviously don't drill through the play field, but you want to put a screw in that back hole, the top hole on that black bracket, and of course you're going to want to align the hoop of this switch within the center of the VUK hole. So of course I'm trying to do this with one hand. Basically it just sits right inside that hole there. The plunger for the VUK, this plunger right here that shoots up through the middle there, needs to go obviously through the middle of that hoop on the switch. So I would do a little test once you install this to make sure that when you push this up, it does not hit the hoop on the switch, and that the switch is sort of centered in the hole. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that while the switch is pre-bent from us, you're going to want to make sure that when the ball does go through the hole and onto the switch, that you hear the click of the switch, so that you know that when the ball goes in the hole, it pushes the switch down, and that way the throne room knows that the ball is in the hole. And it should pop back up, of course, when the ball gets kicked out of the hole. You can bend this switch. I would use a couple pair of pliers, one to hold the end of the wire right here, so it does not put tension or rotational force on where the wire is soldered to the tang of the switch, and then use another pair of pliers to bend this however you need to get it to fit perfectly in your game. Like I said, they're pre-bent from us, so it should fit pretty well. You can take this black bracket off. It's just clipped on here. There's little nubs that fit inside the holes on the side of the switch. You can see them there from that side, and then this side little clip here just clips around the switch, so you can spread it apart. Pull this little clip to the side and slide the switch out if you need to make adjustments, so that the bracket that you're screwing into the play field here, let's just get it back up here if I can. There we go. So that bracket, when it's screwed in place there, could stay in place, and you could actually remove the switch from it without having to unscrew the bracket. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can unscrew the bracket, that's fine too. But that is the crucial element for the throne room being able to detect if the ball is in the hole. So make sure that gets installed, that it's not getting hit by the plunger here when it goes up, and that it's able to detect and make the click sound when the ball goes into the hole. Alright, so here's the controller box for the throne room, and there are 4 buttons on here. Your box will have a little label here. In fact, here's an example of the label right there. So you can see the layout of the buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, and what they do. Basically, this top left button, which is number 1, you can sort of see the numbers in there, controls the color. So that's the hue, which mainly affects the flames, but affects everything that's on the main part of the throne room, not the backlighting that goes towards the Munchkin hut area, but that will change the hue, and it will just cycle through those different colors. Number 2 on the top right will change the brightness. It will also go to 0 brightness, so if you're not seeing anything on the throne room at all, that might be something to adjust, is number 2 brightness. Excuse me. Number 3 is the effect, and I will I'll post an image in this video, but mainly on the product page on our website, there will be an image that is a little grid that shows the different effect values. Basically, you're turning on and off different effects from the flame activity to the head flashing and the rear lights turning on, just different states that the controller can detect and react to. So whether or not the flames are at a low intensity or high intensity, and when they change that effect. So that will be an image that I'll pop in here and you can see and choose from, but also on our website, pinballmods.co. And then finally, number 4 is the speed at which the effects take place. So basically, I think there are probably 6 or so different speeds, and the lowest speed will just give the longest time in between each effect. So basically, the flames will flicker slower on the flame pots. The head will have a slower flashing in and out when it's flashing, that sort of thing. So those effects, basically, the timing on those effects will get faster and slower depending on the speed setting. Now for the actual controller for the backlighting, so basically that first controller box for button keypad controls everything you see here, but this lighting strip on the back is controlled by this controller and the white control box that goes with it. So basically this shoots an IR signal to this little black receiver there, and this controls that strip on the back. There are 2 different sections of this controller, really. This area with the white background controls the white LEDs that are on this strip. So these 3 LEDs here, those can be set to different intensities and can be turned on and off. So you can have the white on or off independently of these 3 LEDs, which are RGB ones. Those 3 LEDs are controlled by this area of the remote. On and off, up and down in brightness, those 2 buttons there, just pure RGB W. W is a combination of all 3, and then all these different color options that you can choose there. These effects you can mess with, but I would assume that you probably don't want any of those effects on, so you can just choose a color and have it stay to that color. These will like jump around the lights and make them flash and change colors like rainbow and stuff like that. So that's what the control does. That's what the controller buttons do. And then one other thing that I need to mention is the installation of this switch here, which is something that wasn't covered originally. And that switch will come with this mounting bracket.